Coming up on tonight's UAP News Show, the long-awaited AARO Report and everyone's reaction to it.
UAPs and how people should respond to them.
The Italian UFO Report.
UAP Courses with Dr. Massimo.
The new MUPAS device and how it can help us study the paranormal.
Mental health advocacy and UAPs.
James Fox's upcoming film, The Program.
And CE5 with Dr. Stephen Greer. Hey there, beautiful souls. It's your girl, Allie, and we're back at it again for another episode of UAP and UFO News Show. We've combed through this past week's most exciting, intriguing, and informative happenings, and I'm stoked to get started. So without further ado, Justin, say hey.
Greetings, cosmic enthusiasts. It's Justin here, and welcome to the UAP Society's UAP UFO News Show. Your ticket to an interstellar adventure like no other. Whether you're a believer or a skeptic, get ready for a cosmic rollercoaster ride through the latest updates from the far reaches of the galaxy.
You're in for a treat as we bring you the latest and greatest UAP and UFO news. So find your seats, strap in, and get ready to go on a galactic ride with us. First up, AARO Report and everyone's reactions to it. On March 6, 2024, the Pentagon and AARO released Volume 1 of this year's UAP report, and needless to say, it has everyone talking and nobody's happy about it. Only select certain news outlets were invited to join and cover this, which is super sketch all in itself, and the main takeaway message from this report is that, quote, there is no evidence of UAP crash retrieval and reverse engineering programs, end quote. All right, first up, Twitter user Lester Nare gives us a breakdown of which media outlets were invited to this party in the following tweet. New York Times, Washington Post, ABC News, Politico, Newsweek, CNN, Defense Scoop, Task and Purpose, and Pentagon Press Secretary. He says it's a full court press. They are making a mistake, backing themselves into a corner.
Yep, I couldn't agree more. And then journalist Christopher Sharp says, now you can see why this report in the media session was embargoed. This is a DoD-driven story with no scrutiny or opportunity for response by those making the allegations. It is pure propaganda and a bad day for journalism and transparency. To which UAP Society's Captain Chris Lehto replies, the military-industrial complex's tricks won't work in today's world. Their propaganda hack attempts are more obvious each time. Before we get any further into other reactions, though, let's hear from NewsNation's Chris Cuomo as he talks with investigative journalist Ross Coulthart and retired U.S. Navy whistleblower Ryan Graves in this next clip.
Pentagon released a report this morning that really just seems like a political ruse. It really does. After an extensive government investigation, they found no evidence that extraterrestrials have visited Earth or that the government has alien spacecraft in its possession. But the report... So what the report does is directly refute what whistleblowers have said. But they don't give any context for their reckonings. And I'm not playing to the syllogy that you can't prove the non-existence of a fact. How do they prove that there isn't any of these things? By telling you who they spoke to and in what areas and what are these programs and what are these operations. But they didn't do any of that. And they didn't even invite NewsNation. Let's ask NewsNation special correspondent and investigative journalist Ross Coulthart and one of those UFO whistleblowers, former Navy pilot Lieutenant Ryan Graves. Ryan, I start with you. As somebody who served this country and who has no interest in getting involved in all this stink in the first place, what did you make of the reports today?
Well, the report today was disappointing on multiple levels. Primarily for me, when I see that report come out and the language that it used and the way that the media was kind of brought together to not really tell the full story, for me, read it as a way to discourage other whistleblowers and other pilots from coming forward in order to report on these cases. For me, that's especially concerning. This is something that is happening now. This is something that pilots are experiencing now. And this type of language only hurts the reporting mechanisms that AARO is charged with implementing.
Ross, you know the same way I do that a lot of the media love this conclusion for the Pentagon because they don't really care about this story or they dismiss it as nonsense. I'm sure you hear it all the time. So do I. What do you think this was about today, and did it make you change your reckoning of what the situation is?
G'day, Chris. This was all about putting a stake through the heart of continued investigation into the UAP mystery. It was a feeble attempt, I believe, by the Pentagon to try and shut this issue down, a kind of Condon Report 2.0.
Mm-hmm.
The simple fact is that we now have two arms of the US government, the US intelligence community and the Defense Department, saying different things about the same mystery. The US intelligence community's oversight body, the Intelligence Community Inspector General, gave evidence to Congress earlier this year where basically they confirmed David Grush's allegations as credible and urgent. And frankly, that's at odds with what the Defense Department is saying here. And the reason why, it's very simple. The witnesses didn't come forward to the extent that they have done to Congress to AARO. And moreover, the ones that did come forward to AARO, the Pentagon's UFO Investigation Office, they weren't treated fairly. Their allegations were dismissed. There really wasn't the power or, frankly, the will inside AARO, the Pentagon, to investigate this properly. And they didn't even have the power to go and look at these facilities. It boils down, Chris, to the very simple procedure of them literally picking up the phone, organising a meeting with these aerospace companies and with these military officials and saying, hey guys, do you know about a reverse engineering program? Are you aware of any retrievals? You're not? Okay, guys, thanks very much. We trust you. Thanks
That
very
part.
much. Goodbye.
That part.
It really is. When you read the body of the report, it is mindless, breathtaking, just how naive they have been to think that we're all going to believe this piffle.
Ryan, are you going to back off?
Well, no, absolutely not. And I don't think the public is either.
Nope.
A report like this is not going to satisfy the public's curiosity on this topic. We're not stupid.
Right.
The public's not stupid. We understand when we're being misdirected, when we're not having enough information brought forward. It's clear that transparency is not part of the equation for them.
Yeah. And they're getting a pass from the media on it now also by picking their friends. Ryan Graves, thank you very much. Ross Coulthart, as always, I'm here for it. I'm all about the transparency, and I am not satisfied. And I did note that they're talking about alien spacecraft. They're talking about proof that extraterrestrials were here, as if that's the sum total of the phenomena. It's really, those are the minority things. There's so much more that people see all the time and want to know about that they spend money on. So they must be spending money for a reason. Gentlemen, to be continued.
I'm here for it too, Chris, and would also love some actual transparency. So needless to say, Twitter was ablaze with responses to this catastrophe of a report. So let's see what some of these heavy hitters of ufology had to say. First up, Lue Elizondo released a whole entire statement that says, today the Pentagon and its current UAP investigative programs, AARO, issued a public report that is intentionally dishonest, inaccurate, and dangerously misleading. I hold the Pentagon leadership and former AARO leadership accountable for this obvious attempt to diminish and embarrass whistleblowers, to undermine the truth, and ignore the evidence. Their goal is clearly to minimize congressional and public scrutiny and to cover up the truth. To be clear, I do not hold most people who work within AARO to be accountable, as they are not all responsible for their leaders' decisions. Many of us who have worked within the UAP topic for the government are aware of the ample classified evidence that has been provided to AARO and contradicts this report. Senior members of Congress have also had access to this evidence. This report only makes it more abundantly clear to Congress that they must take more legislative action to demand transparency on the UAP topic on behalf of the American people. Myself and others who are aware of the truth are going to keep working to help Congress in their efforts to achieve disclosure. Well said, Lou. Well said.
And then Ryan Graves, who we just saw a minute ago, says, as a former U.S. Navy fighter pilot who works with other advanced UAP witnesses, I am very discouraged and disappointed by the Pentagon's report. Once again, the Pentagon demonstrates it is more interested in discounting witnesses and whistleblowers than it is with actually identifying anomalous objects and phenomena in our airspace. The bottom line is that this report raises more questions than it answers. And in response to that, U.S. Navy and NOAA Administrator Tim Gallaudet replies, on the latest AARO UAP report, Uncertain Vector, who is Ryan Graves, is right. This is an intentionally dishonest and clumsy cover-up that will only pour more fuel on the fire of dissatisfied members of Congress and the public. Filmmaker James Fox, who we'll talk about more later on this show, brings up a great point too when he says, via New York Times, absolute garbage bullshit. Why don't we put Mr. Kirkpatrick under oath And I can personally bring firsthand witnesses to testify as well. Stop lying, you guys. Jeez. He also agrees with Twitter user Klaus, who says, either Sean Kirkpatrick isn't telling the truth, or David Grush isn't telling the truth. I've only seen one of them do this.
Oh, and then Ross Coulthart concurs when he says, important point from Matthew Pines. If the Department of Defense is inferring, David Grush misled Congress under oath about a covert retrieval and reverse engineering UAP legacy program. Put him on trial and let him call witnesses. Let's see who's lying. Remember, it's a breach of Executive Order 12333 for the intelligence community to run covert media influence ops against U.S. citizens. Done, done, done.
Mm-hmm. UFO experiencer and author Whitley Strieber even chimed in when he added this very valuable point. The new UAP report is very concerning. From my standpoint, it is an insult to the close encounter witnesses who have suffered for so long. It is also a reminder that a country cannot be free when too many secrets are kept. Where the secrets start, the republic stops. And last but not least, because there were plenty more that we didn't cover,
Plenty.
in this tweet from Think Tank, even ChatGPT gives its evaluation on the report by saying that it's flawed with numerous errors, fails to address congressional mandate on UAP history, makes nonsensical statements, and lacks critical thinking. It selectively supports AARO's position by ignoring contrary evidence and misrepresenting historical facts. And lastly, recommends AARO to stick to the mission statement, focus on meeting Congress's requirements, and leave scientific study to the scientist.
Tell us how
That's
you
brutal.
really feel,
That's
ChatGPT. Like, that's brutality from a bot,
Yeah.
too. Like, that's...
Yeah.
Oh, man. So, what do you think about the Pentagon's report and the selective media outlets they chose to cover it? Do you think it was well written and factual, or just a bunch of dirt slung around to muddy the waters of the disclosure movement? Should they put David Grush on trial and allow him to call witnesses and set the record straight once and for all? Whose tweet do you most resonate with? Where do you think all of this will lead us? Is it going to discourage future whistleblowers or add more fuel to the fire for more people to come forward with what they know? Let us know in the comments section below.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm most interested in, the 2 to 3% of those objects that they cannot resolve, that they have not found an explanation for. I think that's where the most interesting things are going to be. They say that they have been able to identify over 98, or not over, but 98% of the objects that they've looked into. But, the real gold is going to be in that 2%, I think.
Speaking of investigation, I don't even know what kind of investigation they actually did. To me, it seems like they went in with their eyes closed and their fingers in their ears, like, la, 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 la. Do you guys have anything? No? Okay, good. Peace out. I'm out. Like, they didn't even try. You know what I mean? So I'm just, this is only volume 1. We are supposed to get a volume 2. There's another part of this report that's supposed to be coming out. So with the amount of reactions and controversy this has stirred up, I mean, I'm excited to see like what becomes of volume 1, and there's also volume 2 to look forward to.
Yeah, I think they put this out with a hope or intention to try to put the toothpaste back into the tube, right? But I think it just blew up in their face.
That was actually, yeah, I saw a tweet from a certain person we won't give airtime to on Twitter that had a gif of toothpaste going back in the tube. And I was like, dude, you can't do it. You can try all day long, but you're going to end up messy and looking real dumb. So just don't even go there.
Right.
Up next, UAPs and how people should respond to them. In this story, we will learn from the pros of what to do or what not to do if you have your own UAP experience or encounter. In this next clip from The Good Trouble Show with Matt Ford, we hear from author, pilot, and former MUFON project manager, Richard Lang. For those of you who may be unfamiliar with him, Richard Lang is an FAA multi-engine rated licensed commercial pilot and holds a Bachelor's of Science degree in aeronautics from Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University in Daytona Beach, Florida.
In addition, Richard managed the BASS MUFON SIP project in 2009, which was facilitated at Bigelow Aerospace and was funded and operated by the Defense Intelligence Agency through the Advanced Aerospace Weapons Systems Application Program, or ALSAP, at the Pentagon. And a fun fact is that ALSAP was the most funded and advanced rapid response UFO investigative team in the world.
He's also the author of 3 different books: UFO Investigation, The Methodology for a New Age, UFO Investigation, The Age of Disclosure, Declassification and Disclosure, What the Government Knows About UFOs, which both of those first two came out in 2021. And then in 2023, he came out with UFO Investigation, Police, Fire Department, Rescue, A First Responder's Guide to UFO Encounters. Now, let's hear from him on the do's and don'ts of having a close encounter.
Now, Richard, one thing that we've heard, for instance, Dr. Gary Nolan speak about, David Grush speak about, are I would say that the biological ramifications of encountering UAP close up. Grush, I think it was Grush, or perhaps it was Dr. Nolan, talking about people that approach these objects have radiological damage, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us a bit about that as far as how that would relate to our first responders responding to an incident, someone calling up and saying, hey, this is sitting in my backyard, or anything of that nature.
Okay. In my book, and again, that's part of the reason that this book was written, is to train people that are in law enforcement, to help them understand what's going on with this. And then more important than anything, to make sure they understand what the hazards would be and how to protect themselves from the potential risks of being involved in a close encounter situation. So in my book, I have a chapter, it's chapter 8, and it says what to do and not to do. And basically it talks about there's electromagnetic fields that are hazardous, there's radiological hazards, there's biological hazards. So at 2 o'clock in the morning, somebody calls the dispatcher and says, hey, something crashed out in my pasture where my horses are. And you're the guy on duty that night, you're going to go out there and see what's going on to check it out. And when you get there, if there is something crashed or something landed there, there's some things that you have to be very careful about. And I specifically outline them in my books. First of all, if you have a craft that's not on if it's hovering, the propulsion, and I've talked a little bit about this in the book, but it's called electrogravitic propulsion, but it's very similar to microwave. So if you were to walk underneath something that's hovering, the effect would be the same as if you stuck your arm in a microwave oven. That's the kind of skin
Not
tissue damage
recommended.
it would do. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You could, well, and it has caused people a lot of health hazards and serious injuries and illness and even death. There's all kind of cases out there where someone has an encounter out in a wilderness somewhere, say, and the car gets stopped and there's a craft that's hovering over, around, or near the car. So one individual or a couple individuals get out of the car because they're curious and they're trying to look around and figure it out. And then the other guy is scared to death and he's cowered up and curled up in the back seat on the floor. And then, fast forward 5-6 weeks later, the two guys that got out of the car are coming down with all kinds of illnesses, like tumors and blood clots and cancerous. And the guy that was hiding in the back of the car has no health effects at all. So I think we could say with some certainty and some confidence that if you roll up on something like this, that staying in the car is a really good idea because the metal in the car protects you a lot from the different radiological hazards that might be there. Other things that you'd want to consider is that if you have something that's like, if you have a craft that's on the ground and it's still powered up, it can emit ultraviolet radiation. Like sometimes people say the skin looks like it has a sheen around it, and that's like ultraviolet energy. If you get close to it, it'll burn your skin like sunburn. And there are some cases where you have radiation in like the X-ray spectrum that's strong enough to cause radiation sickness. So again, you want to stay back from those kind of things. There are cases where people that, like in recovery teams and so forth, have gotten close, or where an ET is injured and they've picked him up and tried to take him to a hospital or facility somewhere. That close contact, it's kind of like if you were to pick somebody up that had some infectious disease and you're transporting them, you'd want to treat them the same way. You'd want to use gloves and masks and all that kind of thing. And the same with body recovery, that you just want to be very careful to avoid that kind of bacteriological, biological, the potential for something like that. And also, research indicates that when some of these events are occurring, I know that there was a lot of research on the ranch, the Skinwalker Ranch, and you'll see these discharges, like you'll see a spike in gamma radiation and also like electromagnetic field and also something that's a little controversial, but I always talk about this, is if you are an officer and you're responding to something like that, you want to have a mindset of compassion. If there really is something crashed and these people are, they're sentient beings, they might be injured or whatever, And if you get out of the car and you are feeling compassionate towards them and like have a sense that you want to help them if you can, that kind of thing, I think that goes a long way in for your own personal safety, you know.
I feel like that's all really good advice.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. You know, you want to use caution if you come up on one of these objects, just like he said, you know, and you want to take measures to try to protect yourself. You know, I mean, even though we don't really know exactly what some of these objects are, you know, it's still
Or what kind of fields they're emitting or whatever.
exact. We could be dealing with anything, you know, whether it's a NHI, non-human intelligence, whether it is extraterrestrial or not, you know, whether it's you know, a program that our government is involved with, you know.
Could be that too, yeah.
Yeah, you know, we just don't know.
Yeah, I
So,
mean, a few things came to mind when Richard was talking. You know, he mentioned he mentioned Skinwalker Ranch, which we're going to mention also again later on in the show. But for the purposes of this story, you know, there was a specific person that got radiation damage to the back of his head. And they thought that that came from some sort of like direct energy, like energy specifically directed to the back of this guy's head. So, like,
yeah,
I don't know if
energy
that
weapon.
was from somebody like intentionally doing it or if there was a craft in the area that was emitting it, but if so, why was it directed directly at the back of his head? I don't know, it seemed very specific to that guy. And then when Richard mentioned picking up an ET or picking up an alien and traveling to the hospital with them, that made me think of the Virginia case when they talked about that military guy that helped transport the alien to the hospital and then a few days later came down with some sort of autoimmune disease and ended up passing away.
Yeah, you know, you know, we need to take measures to protect ourselves.
Yeah, and another
You
important
know,
point that he made was about having compassion for sentient beings. I mean, I respect that completely. You know, I think cops should have that in mind when they respond to any sort of situation, especially involving humans. But this also extends to other sentient life. You know, if we do have a crash that has sentient creatures in it or sentient beings in it that are injured and need help, if you walk up on them with your hand on your hip ready to pull your gun out and like do something with it, you know, that could potentially send off the wrong message and get you in a little pickle. So it may just be good advice to just go in with an open heart and realize that they may be hurt and they may need help and you're the one there responding, so it's your job to provide that.
Yep. And speaking of first responders and experiencers of the UAP phenomena, let's jump into our next story.
Okay. Mental health advocacy and UAPs.
On March 10th, Unhidden tweeted, "Unhidden is pleased to announce the appointment of Sean Cahill, investigative filmmaker and retired U.S. Navy Chief Master at Arms, as an ambassador to Unhidden. Unhidden is a charity that has been set up to support good mental health and reduce anxiety around exceptional experiences, as well as to encourage a better, kinder disclosure." Speaking about his involvement with Unhidden, Sean Cahill said, "I have been involved with some challenging first responder situations, so I appreciate the importance of looking out for people who have had frightening experiences. I am pleased to lend my support to Unhidden as an organization that is putting people's well-being first and supporting better conversations about UAPs. Unhidden ambassadors are invited to join Unhidden's all-hands meetings and are fully involved in its work."
To which Sean Cahill replied, "Grateful and honored to be named as an ambassador for Unhidden. It's imperative that mental health and advocacy conversations take a front seat with pragmatic UAP disclosure. Excited for the journey ahead in fostering understanding and kindness. Hashtag mental health awareness, hashtag UAP disclosure." And to be honest with you guys, I wasn't familiar with this organization. I had never heard of it before, so I just did a little digging, found their website, and on it they say, "We are here to support good mental health and reduce anxiety around exceptional experiences, as well as to encourage a better, kinder disclosure. Because of the stigma associated with talking about UFOs, aliens, or other such phenomena, people need to be able to have better conversations around this topic. Whatever the origin of what individuals have seen, it is their lived experience. This non-judgmental approach will help improve people's well-being and help them seek support from doctors and psychologists, as well as friends and family. We are here to help reduce the stigma so that everyone is able to voice their concerns and express their needs. plus to ensure that any revelations or disclosure about the existence of non-human intelligence, or NHI, are made in as kind and people-centric way as possible. We are medically led, and we have a medical advisory board made up of doctors and clinical psychologists. This ensures that everything we do is consistent with best medical practice.
Reducing the stigma is probably the most key aspect of people feeling comfortable to talk about their experiences.
Yeah, and I think it's important that they have somebody like Sean Cahill, whose face and name is known in this arena, to be an ambassador for them, because it'll help to bring people forward to use their services. And mental health is super, super important in general, and especially when it comes to the UFO phenomenon, or just the paranormal phenomenon, or anything that falls under that umbrella.
Right.
And I don't think mental health is something that's talked about as much as it should be.
Yeah, mental health is not a dirty word,
No, right. And it shouldn't be taboo either.
Exactly. People shouldn't be ridiculed or made fun of or have nasty things said about them just because, they're going through trying times.
Right.
And
Or if they're just having like an ontological shock moment to where
right.
they're having a revelation of like, oh shit, everything I've been taught is a bunch of crap, and this is what's really going on. And,
Right.
then you start diving into rabbit holes, and like, at the cards are crumbling and you're trying to pick up the pieces and rebuild something back together. But it's like, people just
Need to
sometimes
support.
they just need support. They just need a minute. They just need a minute to collect themselves. Like literally just need a
Right.
moment.
Right. So yeah, it's super important to try to stay grounded. It's super important to surround yourself with people that love you and your with family members, and just maintain a good attitude towards people that are going through something.
Yes.
Yeah, it's super unfortunate how some people try to make things worse when they don't need to be. But
Right.
people are people, so
Yeah, well, I'm excited for Unhidden and their little collab session with
Yeah.
Sean Cahill, and I'm excited to see like what kind of work that they can accomplish together, and how many people that they can help, and how many more mental health conversations we're going to have because of him moving forward with them. Next up, the Italian UFO Report. An article called Italian Air Force Releases UFO Annual Report 2023 from UAPcheck.com reads, Rome, Italy. Since 1978, the Italian Air Force, known as Aeronautica Militare Italiana, or AMI, has been investigating sightings of unidentified flying objects, UFOs, referred to here as oggetti volanti non identificati, or ONVI, and has been publishing annual reports on these sightings and their investigations since 2001. Now, the Security Department, Stato Maggiore dell'Aeronautica, Reparto Generale Sicurezza, has presented its ONVI report for 2023 and has also revised its statistics. While there were 14 cases in 2022, the report for 2023 appears rather sparse with just 2 events. However, for both of these sightings, the department could not find conventional explanation, which is why the sightings were also cataloged as OVNI.
In the first case on February 2nd, 2023 at 12:28 p.m., a metallic, reflective, and self-rotating sphere was sighted over Pesaro, moving quickly in an easterly direction under clear skies. In conclusion, it is explained, based on the available data used for the investigations, there are no matches between what was reported and known flight activities or other known phenomena. Only a radio probe was launched from San Pietro Campo Fiume at 12 p.m. The event was cataloged as OVNI.
In the second case, on May 14th, 2023 at 9:58 p.m., a whitish, luminous, fluorescent cylindrical object was observed floating slowly from west to east, high in the clear sky over Torricella in Sabina. In conclusion, it is also explained, based on the available data used for the investigations, there are no matches between what was reported and known flight activities or other known phenomena. The event was cataloged as OVNI. Both sightings were submitted by civilians. So their report may be sparse, but hey, there's 2 good things on there. It's better to have 2 than none. And I just think it's cool.
in contrast to AARO's report, where they gave us all, you know, the BS, right? Basically, they gave us the whole 98% of objects that they were able to identify, you know, and they didn't say anything about the 2% that they were not able to identify. You know, they just kind of misled everybody into thinking that, oh, just because, you know, we haven't been able to identify 2% of these objects doesn't mean we won't in the future. You know, we just don't have the data right now to be able to come to a conclusion, you know. Whereas this report is giving us the two, you know, like the 2% that they weren't able to figure out, you know.
Good point. Good point. You're harping on that 2%, but I like it because you're
I mean,
stringing it through these stories.
right,
That's cool. That's
you
cool.
know. Yeah, you know, it seems like the Italians are more interested in those really interesting cases that nobody can really figure out,
Mhm.
you know, versus AARO. They just want to push, you know, BS.
Right. So we covered the Chinese UFO report last show, and this report or this show we're covering the Italian report. So anytime we come across these things, we'll be bringing them straight to you guys.
Mhm.
And while we're on the subject of Italians and UFOs, let's just segue into the next story. So we have UAP courses with Dr. Massimo. Have you ever wanted to seriously study UAPs? Well, now for around $135, you could totally do that. To introduce the man teaching these courses, let's take a look at Lehto Files clip from when Chris interviewed Dr. Massimo.
Okay, welcome to Lehto Files. I'm very excited today to finally talk to an experienced astrophysicist who has been looking into the UAP phenomena for decades now, for many years, and that is Italian researcher Massimo Teodorani. He's an astrophysicist from North Italy. His PhD is in astronomy from Bologna University with a specialization in stellar physics, and he has been, from my understanding, the lead scientist at Project Heston for several years now. So very happy to bring on Massimo. Hello, Massimo. Thank you for being here. How are you doing?
I'm well. Thank you for having me here. It's very important that science is considered because it's the key point of our research here. There's no other way.
So looking at his website, www.massimoteodorani.com, it says, the subject of UAP, aka UFO, is attracting the attention of scientists. Observers, such as military pilots and radar operators, have confirmed the reality of these anomalies, and this is an exciting time for the sciences to engage with this topic. Who knows what new discoveries we may make? My course is not only intended to demonstrate what we know so far about the subject, but above all to offer a strong methodological approach for scholars in order to carry out research and to correctly interpret the evidence that we have accumulated so far. The guiding principle will be critical thinking and will follow the same forma mentis of physical sciences. If this sparks your curiosity and interests, follow the link for more information on how you can participate. The syllabus of the academic lectures that I will be giving is included. Please feel free to share with others who may be interested. And then he goes on to say that if you can't attend at specific dates or times, not to worry, because videos of the lectures and copies of the PowerPoint presentations used during his lectures will be available for download afterwards, and he himself will also be available for questions if the students have any. These classes are being offered now, March through April of 2024, on Tuesdays from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, or from 1 to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Clicking the link there takes you to the Society for UAP Studies webpage where the following course description can be found. This course does not claim to teach established facts such as physics or mathematics. This is not currently possible in the field of unidentified anomalous phenomena or UAP. The purpose of this sequence of lectures is instead to stimulate discussion on a series of very important factors, starting with the survey methodology. Scientific rigor does not rhyme with rigidity. In the case of the study of UAPs, if we really want to expand our scientific knowledge, it is inevitable to marry Galilean rigor with a healthy and balanced mental openness. Otherwise, important aspects may escape us. In this field, we all have only to learn, and no one, starting with myself, has the right to take the chair.
With this approach in mind, I will discuss what, in my opinion, are the most important aspects of UAP research, seen from the point of view of a physical scientist, and the most crucial actions that scientists should take in order to obtain concrete results, not focusing on a particular theory, but exclusively on the methodology to obtain data of an acceptable level using well-calibrated measuring instruments. Regardless of this, no theory or hypothesis with its own internal consistency should be arbitrarily neglected. Only data that can be turned into numbers can tell what we are dealing with.
This seminar will be split into 8 parts of university introductory level, of which I mention here the main points in broad terms. Many of the listed references, some descriptive and some technical, can be found online. For those of you interested in checking any of these courses out or for signing up for them yourself, please check out the video description box below for links to those websites so that you can do that.
Are you one of those people that needs data to fully accept or believe in something? Or do you just like cool gadgets that you can monitor live online? Well, if so, this next story is for you. The new MUPAS device and how it can help us study the paranormal. On March 10th, YouTuber and paranormal experiencer, researcher Carl Crusher tweeted, "The first modular unidentified phenomena alert system is officially live tracking everything in the saloon at Mount Wilson Ranch. Here is the installment and quick tour." For those unfamiliar with the MUPAS device and or Jim Segala, here's a clip from 2 of Carl's videos that'll help give you a better understanding.
Jim, you've been working up and around Skinwalker Ranch and have this very unique career and history now where you have developed these modular unidentified phenomena alert system devices that are now placed and collecting data in experiencers' homes and in their lives. Just to give people an idea of who you are, I know this is something you get asked on every single show. Just tell everybody kind of how you got into this field of work and some of your credentials and background to get up to where you're working around Skinwalker Ranch, if you can.
Yeah, absolutely. So it all started when I was, so I went through the normal educational cycle where I had a degree in engineering. And then after that, I spent a little time as an engineer, switched over, decided to go back to school for a physics degree. I got a PhD in physics, did some postdocing. And at that point, I got very, very lucky and I was able to get a internship with Dr. Cuomo at his institute in Austin, where he was studying some strange phenomena. If anybody that knows Dr. Cuomo knows that anything weird that goes on in nature, he's probably looked at it. And being in that environment gave me the ability to see all sorts of things. And one of the things was I found out that he was a science advisor for a lot of the places in the United States that had strange occurrences, like, for instance, Stardust Ranch, Bob Bigelow's Skinwalker Ranch, and other places. No, not just the famous ones, but lots of other places. Turns out that there was some incidents when Brandon Bugle took over Skinwalker Ranch. There was some injuries that occurred. And those injuries kind of scared everybody because it was at the point where it was felt that these injuries might be something that they have to be very concerned about for other people that come. So they called a pallet, or he called a pallet and says, can you send some scientists up here and look at these injuries that are occurring and see if there's something that you can explain and do I have to worry about it? So that was my initial exposure when, Hal said, okay, he's going to gear up 2 scientists. So I was paired up with Dr. Kit Green, and we both went up to Skinwalker Ranch. Kit already had a good relationship with the ranch, obviously, because he was also on the science board. Went up there, investigated, and that's the first time that I ever realized that, first of all, that was the first time I was exposed to anything about experiencers. I really didn't understand what that meant or even had any concept of what that meant. So, and then the argument was, okay, and also these leave behind some physical footprints, some damage, sometimes some medical problems, things like that. So then it's obvious that if it does do these acute injuries to you when it's giving you these or prompting these experiences, then I can probably measure these things when it's happening.
So I have, this is just the main website here. So this is the site that you would send someone basically that is joining the study or wants to research about this. So let me know where to go and you just I'll just follow along.
Yeah. So basically what I decided to do, and this was just a few months ago, this site actually came into, was brand new a couple months ago. People kept asking me, what did you do for your study? So there was a 3-year study, and the whole idea of the study was to determine if there was physical evidence of a signal that prompted the sensations that you get when you experience, which means that you're not getting these things concurrently. It's not being manifested within your head. It's not something you're making up in your head. It's something that you're being prompted to envision. And the whole idea is that you put a piece of equipment in an area, and this is a picture of one of the pieces of equipment in your local region where you spend your most time or have your most experiences. And at the same time, I provided a way for you to enter in on a daily basis what's going on, what you're thinking, what experience you had. Did you go through any times where you might have had some earaches, or you might have had some nosebleeds, or maybe you got some tinnitus, or you had a metallic taste in your mouth? All of that data gets put into the website. I record that data and match it to the data coming off of the instruments. Once you do things like that, then you could start actually correlating these and saying that at this moment in time, when you had this feeling or this sensation, there was some changes in your environment that could potentially have changed those. So these devices are designed specifically to match the signals that come in your environment And of course, they're very subtle signals. They're not things that are big, big gamma ray spikes that might be showering down. They're little tiny gamma ray spikes that might happen every once in a while, or small changes in your microwave fields around your house. But these are all things that could be part of a bigger signal package that was used to maybe induce or to project into you some feeling or some idea that they wanted you to do, or something like that, like go seeing an orb or seeing a UFO or having a premonition or things like that. So the whole idea with these devices are to marry those two together. And once you have the marriage of the two, that's when you start having some authentic, really good scientific data to work with.
And this device that was built by Jim Segala has a gamma radiation sensor. It has like accelerometer, infrasound, a gyro, like it can tell which direction it is. It also has pressure sensors, weather. It plugs into the internet, and this is going to be available for live tracking. So the whole point is that people who are members of the Mount Wilson Ranch MUPAS group, the Modular Unidentified Phenomena Alert System team, can log in and watch live as the data comes in on this device. So
I think that's a pretty cool device. Carl Crusher himself is a paranormal and I think a UFO experiencer. So he has one of these devices in his home that he's had set up for a while. In the video, he was showing you that little website where you can enter in your own personal occurrences, like if you had a certain dream or if you were feeling a certain kind of way or if your ears were ringing or if you had a taste in your mouth or whatever. And then they match the data that you personally experienced with whatever the MUPAS device was reading and registering from your environment. So that's pretty cool because it's like taking two solid pieces of information and then finding the correlations between the two. So Carl's got one of these mamma jammas at his house. And now they just introduced it and installed it in the saloon of Mount Wilson Ranch. So if you're part of that group, you can log in online and check and see what's going on at any time. It's live. It's plugged into the internet. It's there for you to go check out.
Earlier in the first story, we said that we were going to talk about filmmaker James Fox again. So here we go. James Fox's upcoming film, The Program. Back on March 1st, James tweeted, "Sorry that I have been off the radar, but I've been putting together our latest film, The Program. I am proud to announce we are extremely close to having our rough cut done. Look at all the cuts. Each one represents hours and hours of tough decisions. Very happy."
So as people that edit our own videos to make content, I got nothing but respect for that timeline because there's like so many layers.
Yeah.
Kudos to James because that thing looks intense.
Hours and hours and hours.
For real.
Yep. Then a few days later, he followed up with this. "Today, I began editing the end of the program when I came upon this lovely scene with Rep Luna, Jared Moskowitz, and Rep Tim Burchett of friendship, despite their political affiliation. We need more of this, please." Let's check out that attached video clip now.
So I'm starting editing the end of the film right now. Probably going to take me a couple of weeks as a rough cut. And I came upon this clip that has no audio, but I love the camaraderie between the two parties. We need more of this. Just a beautiful moment.
So cute.
Mm-hmm.
They're all so smiley.
We definitely need more of that.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I love that this UAP issue has become a bipartisan effort because almost every other topic that Congress deals with in this country, like, you know, the two parties are pinned against each other and they're constantly butting heads and fighting. But this thing has brought them together and allowed them to collaborate and unify because ultimately this UAP subject affects all of humanity.
Yes. You know, this is the one thing that is bringing people together, you know. It's, you know, this issue is not about party, you know, this issue is not politics, you know, this is a humanity issue. This is right.
And just like Ryan Graves said, like, I think way back in the summertime, I don't even remember when he said it anymore at this point, but he said that the government does not have the right to classify reality. And it's true.
Right.
They don't. I mean, if UAPs and NHI are real and, you know, this is a legit situation, then we need to know about it. Like, no offense to them, but offense to them, who the hell are you to keep this information from every single human on this planet? It's not your right to do that.
Right.
It's not.
Right.
Point blank, period. And we always like to end the show with upcoming events, conferences, documentaries, or movies. So last but not least, CE5 with Dr. Stephen Greer. Happening this summer, July 26th through 28th at a winery in Temecula, California, Dr. Stephen Greer is holding the CE5 Contact and Consciousness Conference. Let's hear it from him in this next clip from his YouTube video.
Blake Cousins along with you-know-who, Dr. Stephen Greer, right here in Washington, D.C.
Here we are.
We made it, and we've got a lot of things to talk about in today's episode. Thanks for joining us.
Sure. We were doing CE5 Contact. By the way, those of you who want to come, in Temecula, California, we're going to do a whole Friday, Saturday, Sunday, under the whole weekend under the stars in Temecula at a winery out in the hills outside Temecula, California. So those of you who want to come, we just announced that. And so if you can come there in person, I think we can hold 500 people there, but you can also be on virtually. And just go to our website and you'll see it. You can register.
Yeah, we'll put that
It's in July, late July of this year.
And from his website, the event is advertised as follows. 3-day conference at Callaway Vineyard and Winery. Join Dr. Stephen Greer, founder of the Disclosure Project and the CE5 Contact Protocols, for an extraordinary weekend delving into consciousness, meditation, ET technology, coherent thought sequencing techniques, and more. Special guest speaker Lori Williams will conduct a 2-hour session on controlled remote viewing protocols Saturday morning. Don't miss this rare opportunity to join a mass CE5 event under the stars with Dr. Stephen Greer and the team on Saturday and Sunday evening. VIP ticket holders will enjoy a special reception Friday evening, along with a gift bag and Q&A time with Dr. Greer. Space is limited. Can't make it in person? Attend the conference via a live webinar. Recordings of each session will also be made available if you cannot watch the event live.
If you yourself are interested in attending this event, either in person or virtually, tickets can be purchased on his website, and the link to that can be found in the video description box below, along with all the other sources featured on tonight's show. It takes a lot of time to organize all of that, so I'd appreciate if you checked it out.
And that concludes this week's UAP Society's weekly UAP and UFO news show. Thanks so much for hanging out with us, and while you're here, do us a favor, smash that like button, click subscribe, ring our little notification bell, drop a lovely comment down below, and share this video with your family and friends to help us spread the good word. Let's raise the collective consciousness together in unity. All right, much love, peace, and namaste.
The evolution of life on Earth seems to have been profoundly altered by collisions with such bodies. Asteroids.